Interview by Radio ICUR. Obregon City, Republic of Mexico, 1977. Samael Aun Weor. Next, by Radio ICUR. The next interview with Master Samael Aun Weor, Guide of the International Gnostic Association. Master, could you tell us in what way and how do the study programs within the Gnostic Association are developed? With the greatest pleasure, I shall answer to that most interesting question. The discoveries that we encounter about anthropologic issues. Such discoveries are related, precisely, with the programs and upon the basement of those. Obviously, there exists much didactic material sparsed here and there and in nooks, pyramids, tombs, and various archaeological pieces. Obviously, we know how to extract, by precise rules, the knowledge contained in each archaeological piece, for the good of contemporary humanity and for love, naturally, of our beloved Mexican homeland. It has been an interesting response, Master. Now, please, we would like to know why the Gnostic teachings affirm the existence of other dimensions, within which certain prepared people can enter. The following is our question. How many dimensions exist, and how can one obtain the capability to penetrate in them? Certainly, I have liked that question very much. It is interesting. The tridimensional geometry of Euclid is very truly discussed. It has never been accepted in a form of dogma. However, there is no doubt that they still exist, around there, certain retarded people, completely bottled in this type of geometry that is now starting to go out of style. Einstein accepted a fourth coordinate. He is demonstrating, precisely, in his theory of the law of relativity. There is no doubt that the fourth vertical is mathematically demonstrated. Continuing with these disquisitions, we shall say that our ancestor of Anahuac also knew the fourth dimension. If one carefully reads some codices, one will be astounded when you can corroborate this affirmation. It comes to my mind, in this instant, the chronicle of Father Duran, which is marvelous in itself. It refers to a tale of an episode of the life of the famous emperor Montezuma. Wanting to know something about our ancestors, about the ancestors of the great Tenochtitlan, he summoned Tlacaelel, his prime minister, and he told him, I want to know something about my elders, about Quetzalcoatl, about Huitzilopochtli, about the mother of Huitzilopochtli, and about many other men. I wish to visit them. Do you know about that, and where they live? Sir, answered Tlacaelel, your heart is noble, because I see that you really remember our elders. Getting there, where they live, the remote Thule, in the Crystal Isle, in the North Pole, is something more than impossible. The road is closed by many jungles. There are bottomless lagoons and fierce monsters, and nobody could ever get there. I think it is a matter, surely, of charmers, mages, or something. I don't know. Only those people could get to that faraway place. However, there is a great historian in our kingdom. You could consult him. The emperor, quite touched, resolved to with Tlacaelel to the place where the kingdom's historian lived. Worshipful elder, he says to him, I want you to inform him something about our elders. Where do they dwell? Where do they live? What do you know about Huitzilopochtli and all our ancestors, and about the mother of Huitzilopochtli, and about the great Quetzalcoatl? Powerful emperor, responded the worshipful, what you ask of me is very impossible, because then now dwell in the faraway Thule, and no living being can go there. There are deep and impenetrable jungles, bottomless lagoons, and oddly, there are those that can ever get there. But you have 60 mages in your court, and you can consult with them. I see that you have told me the truth then, kind old one, because the same has been affirmed by my prime minister. He gave thanks and left. He, Montezuma, then summoned the 60 elders of the great Tenochtitlan, as wise as no one else, and he delivered gifts for Quetzalcoatl and for all of the ancestors of the ancient Nahuas. The event was extraordinary. It is said that the 60 went to a far-off place where they carried out certain ceremonies or cults, proper of Anahuac, danced around a fixed place, anointed their bodies with certain ointments, and based solely on the power of the thought, they entered within the fourth dimension. The legend tells of the centuries that they traveled between from the fourth vertical until the land of the elders, the sacred isle, located today under the ices of the North Pole, a place where the remote Thule is really located. It is said that this is the geologic layer or holy island that has remained since the beginning, always firm, although covered in ice on these times. Well, the truth is that according with the tale, I always refer to the same, that the narrations of Father Duran, Catholic priest, they found there, they, the voyagers of the fourth vertical, to a worshipful elder. They approached him and he interrogated them. Where do you come from? We come, they said, from the great Tenochtitlan. We are subjects of the great Emperor Montezuma, and we bring presents for our ancestors. Good, follow me. They followed him and penetrated in some marvelous compounds. More, on the way their feet would sink into the sand. What is wrong with you, Mexicans? Why art thou so heavy? What do you eat? They responded, we drink pulque and eat all kinds of meats, and we get drunk. Ah, and that is what makes you so heavy, Mexicans. They received the gifts, the worshipful elders, and it should be stated that within those ancestors of Anahuac was Quetzalcoatl and the mother of Huitzilopochtli, with her face covered in soot and her clothing in rags. Quetzalcoatl said, if you, Mexicans, do not suspend pulque and continue with human sacrifices, you will know that on the other side of the sea, white men with beards, he was referring to the Spaniards, of course, will come and will enslave you and destroy you. The tradition tells that the 60 returned to the kingdom of Montezuma and communicated to the prime minister and the emperor of everything that happened. They cried bitterly. Unfortunately, they did not correct themselves and continued the orgies with pulque and human sacrifices, and alas, with everything that goes down when a civilization decays. Later, we have seen that the prophecy was fulfilled. So it is, in true reality, in accordance with certain traditions, given by some Catholic priests, written in very serious books, the ancestors of Anahuac managed the states of Jinas, or Yinas, as those mysticals are called, states in which are precisely related with the fourth vertical. We have procedures or methods that we have learned precisely, or we have extracted from some codexes, and by which is possible, educated by the force of thought, penetrate into the fourth vertical. This does not deal with concepts or utopias, no. In true reality, now that some of us know how to put our physical bodies within the fourth vertical, we have achieved it. We consider, then, that the world is multidimensional, so that we try that people care a little more about getting to know the superior dimensions of nature and of the cosmos. Master, the Gnostic Association of Anthropologic Studies is imparting free classes to all of those that wish to assist to these. There are many of good things that are taught there. This the way to penetrate in the fourth dimension. Moreover, our question about the same theme is in the sense of how many years of study, more or less, are needed to enter the fourth dimension. Well, our concept time between us has been eliminated, and we have replaced that with the concept space. Obviously, those who realize great super efforts in the education of the mental forces, volatives, etc., quickly obtain and realize the phenomena related to the superior dimensions of nature and the cosmos. However, those that do not enforce themselves, those who truly do not dedicate themselves to study and to thinking, linger much in realizing such experiments with good success. Master, what is the Gnostic Association's opinion of the Bible? We consider that is a sacred book and we respect it profoundly. Nevertheless, the Gnostics have, say, our Bible. I want to refer, in emphatic form, to the Pistis Sophia. Such work was found in the soils of Egypt. The shovel of the archaeologists met with the papyrus. The same was translated, correctly, to different languages. Unfortunately, it was encoded. We are unveiling it for the good of humanity. The Pistis Sophia has the teachings that Jesus of Nazareth gave to his disciples in the Mount of Olives. All of the papyrus is written in Coptic, and on the bottom, it is wonderful. In these moments we are, precisely, committed to the labor of unveiling and explaining, clearly, the cited papyrus. I am sure that it will be beneficial for the whole Christian world, because they will better know the word of the Master. Here too, in Mexico, we are not left behind. We have here, Us, codexis as wise as the Codex Borgia, which pertains to the anthropology. We propose to ourselves in unveiling it, thanks to the codes that we actually have, for the good of the hurting humanity. This codex contains extraordinary teachings. As it is known, it was found here in Europe because the foreigners always loot our national treasures. They took that codex to Europe. A child over there, in a very aristocratic house of Europe, was toying with the codex, and they even burned a part of it. Fortunately, it was not much that was burned. That way the codex got saved. Someone, interested in those studies, saved it in time. In the name of the truth, we should say that this codex contains extraordinary wisdom that we will unveil shortly, and we will continue with our work of Gnostic anthropology for the good of all aching humanity. Master Samael Aun Weor. According to the theory of a German writer and investigator, there were astronauts in our planet thousands of years ago. We would like to ask you opinion on behalf of the Gnostic Association about this very interesting issue. Certainly, this question is greatly related with prehistory and even with geology, because it is well known that one and the other have changed throughout the centuries. For example, where the Gulf of Mexico currently lies, there existed a precious valley, but because of the submersion of the Atlantean continent, such valley disappeared, the waters flooded it. In other times, for example, there existed a fringe of land that went from the north of the Gulf of Mexico to Africa through Atlantis. Through this fringe of land came many colored people until our ancient country, Mexico, where there existed different kingdoms in those times. Europe, then, had not completely emerged from the bottom of the seas, and Atlantis is extended from south to north in the ocean that has its name. So, the geology is modified incessantly. I say and cite this precisely because in Atlantis they had what could be called cosmoport, cosmic spacecraft, manned by the famous extraterrestrials, which descended normally on the airport, or cosmoport, to be more clear, that was located near one of the great Atlantic cities. In different cities there were cosmoports, but the most important one was in the city of Samlios, on those ages. It was very similar to the modern Paris of our days, a kind of world capital of the cultural type, super civilized, and the inhabitants of Atlantis were accustomed to the descents of spacecraft, manned by people of other planets. This was not strange, this was not odd, it was as common as the onion or the potato. Unfortunately, the Atlantean civilization decayed. The people used atomic weapons for destruction, the same as in our period. It was seen that humanity was degenerating, and then the ships were less frequent. And when humanity totally degenerated, when it turned into a civilization similar to ours, because of its degeneration, the spacecraft then glowed because of their absence. However, we were not totally abandoned. Atlantis sunk between the bottoms of the seas. We cannot deny this. Through horrible cataclysms, there came a revolution of the axis of the earth. The seas were displaced, the bedrock was changed, and Atlantis finally came to an end. Remnants of the Atlantis are the Antilles, Canary Islands, etc. However, I repeat, we are not totally abandoned. The spacecraft always furrow the skies. I have narrated various times, before an audience, a solid fact that happened to me. I had direct, personal contact with the inhabitants of other planets. I achieved this contact in the desert of the Lions, Mexico City, and it was extraordinary. I was there in that forest, when I was surprised by a ship that slowly descended until landing in a clearing of the forest. Moved by curiosity, I approached to see what was happening, and my surprise was great when I saw, precisely over a steel tripod, an extraordinary ship, marvelous. A hatch opened and a slim person descended by a ladder, of medium stature, copper skin, blue eyes, ample forehead, straight nose with slim lips, small and tucked ear, conic hands, elongated like that of Francis of Assisi or Antonio de Padua. He had a strange apparatus, a mechanical instrument that was unknown by me. Behind him descended a whole team, among them 2 ladies of unknown age. I extended my hand to salute them, and as a curious thing, he extended his hand and stretched it with mine. I greeted him in our language, and he answered in perfect Spanish, something that really surprised me. I did not know that the astronauts spoke Spanish. Anyway, it seems that they have the gift of languages. So I understand, because he spoke with no difficulties. I begged him to take me to another planet, to Mars, I said. So he responded, "To Mars, you say?" "Yes, to Mars." "Well, it's just there," was the answer. I was perplexed. "Just there?" I told him, "Well, I wish the scientists of our planet Earth could travel so easily, as these men do." To him, this is just there. My supplications were useless, in the sense that he would take me. I held the tripod, the steel one, in which the ship was on. I did not want to let go. I was determined that they took me anywhere, but the captain was silent. Afterwards, the team sat down on some logs that were around, on the ground, and one of the ladies, standing up, spoke in name of all the team. She said, "If we put a plant that is not aromatic next to one that is, it is clear that the one that is not aromatic will get impregnated with the aroma of the one that is, right?" I answered, "Well, of course, that is true." Then she continued, "The same thing can happen with two worlds. Worlds with humanities that were very bad before, now are very good because they became impregnated, little by little, with the radiations of the neighborhood worlds. Nevertheless, we have arrived here on Earth, where you live, and we see that here, in this planet, it is not the same. What is happening here?" The lady was very amazed. She was bewildered. I understand that she was horrified on the state of perversity in which we are. According to point of view and understanding, she was right. Well, I responded how I could. I told her, in this planet Earth what happens is that it's a mistake of the gods. Then I resolved to round my concept better, mature it a little, and I continued saying, it is the karma of the worlds. Karma is an Oriental word, better said Sanskrit, which indicates law of cause and effect, or law of action and consequence, meaning, such action, such consequence. There cannot be effect without cause, nor cause without effect. Any defect can become in cause as well, within the law of straight chaining. Therefore, the lady nodded, and making a respectful gesture, the other lady also nodded, and the gentleman, all nodded with a respectful gesture. Well, I was satisfied by not being so wrong. I tried to round the concept the best I could, and it worked. Everyone got up to go back to the ship. I saw that the thing was grave, that they were leaving and not taking me. I very much wanted to go. I resolved, simply, to reiterate my demand to the captain. I told him, I am a man with a perfect sense of moral responsibility. I know what I am asking of you, Captain. I need to bring information with data of other civilizations, proof that life exists in other worlds. Those earthlings are very difficult. Unbelievers by 100%, they do not even believe in their own shadow. I know the earthlings. I am an inhabitant of this world, and I know what they are. These, not even crying with tears of blood, they believe you. They are unbelievers, materialists, rude in 100%. Well, nothing that I said was worth anything to them. Finally, the captain responded, and it was like a wonderful bounty, saying, we shall see on the way. He said this at the time he raised his index finger, the index finger of the right hand. It was a comfort for me, even that phrase, even if it was only that. I know they are not earthlings. Earthlings make fun of you. These do not. These people do not. And that phrase, I am sure that they will fulfill it. However, what way did the captain refer to? I understand that it was the way of wisdom. Well, there we are, advancing a little more. There we go with our investigations. We try to correct out psychological defects, to see if one day we ever get the captain to remember us and take us to know other habited worlds. After those words said, that extraordinary man, followed by his people, returned to the ship. He got on through the stairs, opened the hatch, and entered within it. I conveniently withdrawed, and without them asking for it. I understood, simply, that the radiation could end my life, so I got away to a certain distance to observe what was happening. That ship spinned over its axis and rose to a great velocity, until it was lost in the infinity. Well, so, I have this data and I have communicated them here, to you, very gladly. It is clear that the issue was surprising. For me, these days, the issue of the flying saucers is not a cause of curiosity. I understand that in order for one to be taken to other inhabited worlds, one needs to be cleaner, more responsible, eliminate many psychological defects, etc. I am waiting to see if it's possible to correct my defects. I could one day be visited again by that team. I will be hopeful, and, simply, I am sure that they will fulfill their word because they are not earthlings. I hope that will be so, Master. Now our question is the following. What is the Gnostic Association's opinion about the yoga doctrines, such as Hatha Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, etc.? With the greatest pleasure, I will answer this most interesting question. Certainly, there exist diverse yoga schools, Kundalini Yoga, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, etc. In a way, we will never pronounce against any of these branches of yoga. We are sure that as we continue with our defects of the psychological type, by even as much yoga-type feats that we accomplish, we will indubitably continue with our dormant conscience. Psychology offers extraordinary surprises. It is true that we, the Gnostics, have a psychology of a revolutionary type, and before thinking about much Hatha Yoga, we are more interested in the revolution of the conscience. I am sure that if people could comprehend what the me is, the myself is, they could be completely and profoundly dismayed. If anyone could look in the mirror and look at him or herself completely, full-bodied, such as it is, they would flee horrified. In addition, it is because the me, in true reality, exists in a pluralized form. Indubitably, every one of the elements of me is undesirable. In every one of ourselves there is hate, envy, laziness, gluttony, fornication, violence, etc. What good is that we become more skillful, in Hatha Yoga for example, if we continue with all of our undesired elements within our psyche? That is why it is better, before doing contortionism in Hatha Yoga, dedicate ourselves to correct ourselves, to eliminate, from ourselves, our own psychological defects. The conscience of the human being is dormant, deeply dormant. It's tucked in, we could say, within each of our psychological elements that we possess. It is bottled between the ego, the me, the myself. It could be said, with other terms, that we are submerged in a state of collective hypnosis. The people are dormant. However, they ignore that they are dormant. People are in a hypnotic trance, but they ignore that they are in a hypnotic trance. They dream that they are awake, but they are not awake. Only by truly disintegrating the undesired elements that we carry within ourselves, we could achieve the complete awakening of the conscience, and that is fundamental. When one awakens, one can see, hear, touch, or feel all of the dimensions of nature and the cosmos, because we very well know that our world is multidimensional. Master, previously we heard you mention the word karma. You said it was Sanskrit, but with the studies that we have realized and what we have read, we know that the word dharma also exists, that is tied to the first. I beg that with your kindness you give us a more ample explanation of these two very interesting words, tied very much to the studies that the students of the Gnostic Association realize. With the greatest pleasure I give answer to that interesting question. Karma means law of cause and effect, such cause, such effect. Dharma means reward. It is said that bad actions weigh against us, that sooner or later they fall on ourselves like a bolt of vengeance, and this is true. A bad cause can create a bad effect. A bad action must bring a terrible consequence. The word dharma is different. It is also a Sanskrit term, and it means reward. If we do good, we shall gather good. If we sow good earth, we collect what we sow. It is obvious. So, then, karma and dharma are very interesting Sanskrit words. In how much time were the pyramids of Egypt built, and who were these extraordinary builders? With the greatest pleasure I shall give answer to that question. Certainly, the pyramids of Egypt were built by the Atlantean many thousands of years before Jesus Christ. We consider that the Great Pyramid dates some 27,000 years before Christ, and other has, more or less, similar ages. However, and even if it seems incredible, the pyramids of Mexico are the most ancient. Those were not built, as they say, in the year 1325. Absolutely not. They are much older than the Egyptians, and they were built directly by the Atlantean. Whoever says that the Great Tenochtitlan was founded on the year 1325, well, they are completely wrong. And if there are those that affirm that it was on the year 1400 or on the year 1500, they are even more mistaken. It would coincide, then, with the arrival of the Spaniards. So then, really, it is not possible to bring up a powerful civilization like the one that the Nahuas had, an extraordinary civilization like the one of the Great Tenochtitlan, in the space of 1 or 2 centuries. This results in something more than impossible. So then, the truth is that the pyramids are much older than the ones of Egypt, and that the Great Tenochtitlan was not founded 1 or 2 centuries before the arrival of the Spaniards. No, the Great Tenochtitlan is older than one could believe, more ancient, if you wish, than the pyramids of Egypt. Who affirm the contrary are affirming absurd things, because no one can rise a civilization so powerful that the one of the Great Tenochtitlan in the space of 1 or 2 centuries. Much more time is needed to found a civilization of that magnitude. Many times we ask ourselves what happens outside of our planet, but we forget to ask about what happens in our world Earth. In this order of ideas, could you give us an explanation about if there exists or not the famous Yeti, this abominable snowman, as some writers call it? The abominable snowman, as it has been dubbed, really exists and has been photographed, not only in the Himalayas, but also in America. It exists in some deep jungles of South America. It also exists in some places within California. Not very long ago, a certain magazine of the United States published precisely the photograph of this snowman seen in a deep forest of California. So, the Yeti exists in all the countries of our world, the Earth. It is a man, but it is seen as a beast. It has never done anything wrong to anyone, but it is hated and persecuted by the felony of not wanting to come into our super civilization. That, as a side comment, it has nothing of civilization. But we are selfish. We would like to see the Yeti dressed with slacks, necktie, and pretty shirt, fixed up to the 20th century style, etc., etc., etc. But since the Yeti manages to stay isolated, it is pursued with dogs, with shotguns, it is wanted dead. That is the sad reality of the Yeti. Master. In the World Congress of Gnostic Anthropology, celebrated in Guadalajara in the year 1976, we had the opportunity of hearing one of your interesting discourses, where you talk about the planet Hercolubus that will pass near the Earth within a few years. Could you be so kind as to tell us at what distance, more or less, this planet is actually at, and at what time will it pass near the Earth? Certainly, it is the planet that the astronomers have baptized with the name of Barnard I. I understand that the name Barnard is due to an astronomer that qualified himself as the discoverer of that planet. However, before Barnard I appeared in the skies, we already talked broadly about the same, about the planet that we refer to. And let us remember, precisely, Nostradamus. He also cited. Then, the planet that comes, he baptized it with the name Hercolubus. Nostradamus had his reasons to name it that. The crude reality of the facts is that it deals of a world of the Tyler solar system. All of the Tyler system is getting dangerously close to the Or's solar system, which is the name of this, our system. Hercolubus has a giant orbit, and every time that world has gotten near our system, it has produced a catastrophe. At the end of the Lemuric period, Hercolubus got dangerously near to our world Earth, and then the fire of the volcanoes finished with the Lemuria. Terrible earthquakes, as a consequence or corollary of the apparition of so many volcanoes, made that the old continent, that would be located in the Pacific, would sink through 10,000 years, little by little, between the wild waves of the Pacific. When Hercolubus arrived at the end of the Atlantean period, it produced a revolution of the axis of the Earth. The seas changed its bedrock, and the infuriated waves engulfed Atlantis. This is the famous universal deluge, cited in oh so many religious legends. In this very instant, Hercolubus comes again. It travels at extraordinary velocities through space, following its orbit. Obviously, as it comes near to a certain distance, it will be visible to the whole world, with the naked eye and in broad daylight. Hercolubus is 6 times bigger than Jupiter, the titan of our solar system, and thousands of times bigger than the Earth. It is a monster of space. When Hercolubus gets near, the first thing that will jump to the surface, attracted by the magnetic force of the same, will precisely be the liquid fire of the interior of the Earth. This will burn the shell of the whole planet Earth. The geologic shell will burn. Everything that contains life will be incinerated, and when the maximum closeness of Hercolubus happens, a revolution of the axis of the Earth will be produced. The seas will change bedrocks, and the actual lands will be submerged in the bottom of the oceans. So then, in true reality, a great catastrophe approaches. The astronomers of all the observatories of the world Earth have already done the maps of what the great catastrophe will cause. In our institution, we have a map that has been done, not by us, but by the observatories, a highly mathematic, scientific map about what the great catastrophe will cause. It is a marvelous cosmogonic map. By this map, we see of what Hercolubus will affect. In first place, our planet Earth, and in second place, Mars, Uranus, and Jupiter, but the main impact will be felt by our own world Earth. So that, this civilization is being called to perish within very little time. The Mayans are not that ignorant as many illustrated people suppose. There are those that suppose that the people of the Mayab knew nothing about astronomy or about mathematics, etc. Why would put a Mayan, with mathematic calculations, to rival with the best mathematician of the world or any computer? And I am sure that they, with just a few grains of coffee and some of maize, would make operations what would astound the whole world, faster than any other computer. The Mayans affirm, according with their mathematic calculations, that what we are talking about, Hercolubus and the great catastrophe, would be the Katum 13 to them. The 13 Katuns is something very sacred. Until now, the 12 Katuns will have been completed step by step, and they await the great catastrophe, to the Katum 13. The Katum 13, according to the Mayans, will be on the year 2043.